Hi there, Richard Fulmer here. Welcome to another edition of Richard's Rock Rambles. I just want to say that while I've been doing these videos for my channel, I found the great thing is that you revisit bands that you perhaps haven't listened to in a long time, bands that you've forgotten about, and just how great some of the music is. And that's really been the fun part of doing this for me. Hopefully for you guys as well. So today we're going to have another look at a band that should have been a lot bigger than what they were. Pretty big in their home country and in Europe. They just never quite cracked the States. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Golden Earring, the Dutch band. Been going for a long time. They're still going today. And pretty much with the same members. They had a few lineup changes in the beginning. But I think from about 1969 up until today, they have the same lineup, same bassist, guitarist, drummer, and vocalist. So let's have a look at this band. And to me, they're a band that so many people, so many of you guys, only know for one song, and that's being Radar Love. This band is so much more than just Radar Love. I mean, there are tracks on some of their early 70s to mid 70s albums that for me surpassed Radar Love. I mean, that was obviously a song that had commercial appeal, which is why it became so big. And the album that it came from, Moontan, sold lots of copies. But they had a lot more going for them. Their style was a mixture of pop, rock. In the early 70s there was a lot of prog, hard rock, but a psych in the beginning as well. So they had everything. They had great vocalists, the guitarist and the lead vocalist, amazing rhythm section, brilliant bassist and drummer, really locked in together. So let's have a look at this band. Formed in The Hague in 1961, so they've been going for quite a while. The current members are Rinus Gerritsen on bass, George Kooijmans on vocal and guitar, Barry Hay, vocals, guitar, flute and saxophone, so he's quite a versatile character, and then Caesar Zuidewijk on drums. I hope I said that correctly. So this lineup has been together since about 1970. They have had other guys come and go. I think in the 80s there was an addition on guitar. There might have been a few other guys right in the beginning. But this is pretty much the lineup that has got all the recognition and has been involved with most of their albums, if not all of them. They have made 26 studio albums. It's about 6 live albums. I think there might be a few more than that. And about 6 DVDs. See, these guys have been quite prolific. Their last full studio album came out in 2012. And I think after that they did an EP called The Hague, which was followed by a 50-year anniversary tour. And I think they did a DVD for that, which is amazing. I actually watched that again last night. To think these guys are all, 60 plus? Late 60s easily, and they still crank it out. These guys can rock, and they are rock solid on stage. George Kooijmans, the guitarist, is red hot. The bassist is amazing. Rinus Gerritsen, I always forget these names. A great concert, and it was filmed in Holland. And you can see the crowd are really getting involved, singing along with them, and just great to see them in their home country. Okay, so yeah, their most recent live DVD is called 5-0 at the Ziggo Dome. So the Ziggo Dome is in Holland. The EP was The Hague, which was coincided with that particular tour. So let me just show you what I've got on album, CD. I'll have a few vinyl as well, and a DVD. I don't have all of the albums, but I have quite a few that are quite notable, especially the early 70s ones, which for me was when they were at their most creative and most innovative, and they, tried all sorts of different things. In the 80s, they went a bit more commercial, basic hard rock albums, nothing, you know, for me personally, as exciting as the 70s stuff. They still sold a number of albums during the 80s and the 90s. And like I said, still going today. What I like about heritage bands are the ones who don't just rely on the hits. They release new albums with new material. For me, that's what a musician should be. If you're a musician, you're somebody who wants to create. You want to keep exploring new avenues. I think once you stop doing that, then you should rather hang up the guitar, because then you just become a tribute band. So let's have a look at what I've got. The first one I have is an album called 8 Miles High. I remember when trying to find this album, it took me forever, quite rare. And this was released in 1969, which was, as you know, was a great year for rock music. So this album, they do a great cover of the track 8 Miles High, which I think was a Birds track. I hope I've got that right. 19 minutes and change. Long track. Incredible bass work. A very different version, obviously, to the original. It starts very slowly, and then it rocks out in the middle, and there's a great ending as well. So they put their stamp on that particular track. There's only 5 tracks on this album, but of course that particular one is 19 minutes. So that's the first one that I have. The second one I have is from 1970, and it's simply called Golden Earring. That's that one there. It's also called The Wall of Dolls. There's a track on here called The Wall of Dolls, and you can see the dolls in the background, if you can see that there behind the guys. Amazing album. This is a typical early 70s sounding album, the rock, the blues, but a psych, great guitar work. Some of the standout tracks on here are The Loner, Big Tree, Blue Sea, the title track, The Wall of Dolls, if you like the title track, Back Home, and a very strange title for this song, I'm Going to Send My Pigeons to the Sky. Okay, that's 5 minutes long. And then As Long as the Wind Blows, which is sort of a ballady type song. Great track. Well worth checking this one out if you can find it. I think most of these Golden Earring CDs have been re-released. I got all of these on the Red Bullet label. The mastering is pretty good. The sound is good as well. And I think a lot of them have been re-released on vinyl as well, which is great. The next one I'm going to talk about is one called 7 Tears, one of my favorite Golden Earring albums. This is the sound that I really enjoy. The sound they had in the early 70s. I was playing this the other day, and after you play this, the songs are so memorable that they stick in your brain. Particularly the first track, Silver Ships. She Flies on Strange Wings, which is an amazing, epic track. Should have been so much bigger than what it was. I mean, to me, that's a much better track than something like Radar Love. Just my own personal opinion. And the last track, You're Better Off Free, also very good. There's some quite long tracks on here, 7 minutes, 6 minutes. Nothing under 3. That's probably my favorite Golden Earring album, 7 Tears. Then we move on to one called Together. A guy sitting there amongst the palm trees and what have you. Standout tracks on here, Buddy Joe, which I think they still play to this day. Jangaleen, 1,000 Feet Below You. Great guitar work, some flute work on here. A lot of flute in their early 70s albums. Also a good album, Together. Then, of course, we come to the big seller, Moontan. Here in this country, that album was banned. The album cover was what got it banned for a short period. But of course, back in the day in South Africa, many things were banned for all sorts of strange reasons. But anyway, besides that, there's not a bad track on this album. That's why it sold so well. It's just cohesive, great interplay between Barry Hay and George Kooijmans on guitar and flute. Candy's Going Bad, a great track with a really nice guitar intro. Are You Receiving Me, 9 minutes long. One of the best prog tracks they ever did. And for me, that is a prog track that anybody who digs prog should listen to. It's incredible. There's about 4 different parts to that song. And every time I hear it, it just takes you away. It's amazing. Susie Lunacy, Radar Love, of course, the multi-million seller. Just Like Vince Taylor, which had a bit of a rock and roll feel to it, sort of a harping back to the 50s. And The Vanilla Queen, also 9 minutes long, which is another great track on here. Stunning album, really. Why this band didn't get the same recognition at the time as bands like Led Zeppelin, who knows? They should have. So I'm missing a few albums. The next one that I have is their live album from 1977. They do a lot of the big hits on here. Radar Love, Just Like Vince Taylor, 8 Miles High, Vanilla Queen. Complete with great bass guitar solos and drum solos. Well worth checking this live album out. If you want a good live album from that period, can't go wrong with that one. Then we move on to 1978 and an album called Grab It for a Second. That very 80s looking cover, although this was released in 78. This is not a great album for me. You can see here they were Jimmy Iovine, I think you say his name, Iovine. He was the producer, and he had this sort of slick American sound, which for me, they lost their identity when they started doing albums like this. There's nothing really on here which blows my mind. Roxanne, the first track's okay, Leather's okay, but pretty bland. And it was really sad for me after that great creativity of the early 70s for them to sound like, a lot of other late 70s, early 80s rock bands, pretty generic. I don't know if he was trying to turn them into another Aerosmith. Didn't work for me. Grab It for a Second. Then we move on to 1982 for an album called Cut. Very 80s sounding drum sounds on here, the one thing I hated about the 80s for rock music was the terrible drum sounds. Sounded like somebody playing on tin cans. But anyway, this had their next really big hit called Twilight Zone, 7 minutes and 55 seconds long. That was their next big hit after Radar Love. It got a lot of airplay. I think there was a music video to go with it as well. But apart from that, The Devil Made Me Do It, the first track's not too bad. Not one of my favorites though. So it did have one big hit. Then the next one that I have moves on to 1991. And this was sort of a comeback album in a way. It took me a few listens to get into, but it's worth checking out. Sorry. Just need to wet the whistle there. The album is called Bloody Buccaneers. Making Love to Yourself is a good track. Going to the Run, which is a song all about the Hells Angels, which I think they still play to this day. They played it on that video I watched last night. Planet Blue, the title track. One Shot Away from Paradise is good. When Love Turns to Pain. It needs a few listens, but it's a pretty good album. Nice production on here as well. Not that horrible 80s sound. It's the drums sound pretty good. And with a bassist like Rinus Gerritsen, you want that sort of in the front. And it's back on this album. The next one I have is called Millbrook USA, which is one of their more recent ones. Well, it goes back quite a while now. It's not too bad. There's Hammer of Love is a good track. Albino Moon. The only problem with this album, there's too many tracks. There's about 15 tracks on here, 14, 15 tracks, which for me is, they could have cut it by about 5 and it would have been a lot more, it would have kept your attention a bit more. It tends to drag towards the end. So that's the last one that I have. There are many others. There's about 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 albums that I don't own. On vinyl I have 2. I have one from 1976. This one is called Contraband. Some dodgy clothing that they're wearing there. Tracks on here: Faded Jeans, Fighting Windmills, Mad Love's Coming. That's pretty good. Not much else on that album. And then I have the vinyl version of Unturned, which, if you open it up, has that inside. Rather strange cover. I think that may have been why it was banned in this country, the inside cover, or maybe even the outside. Who knew? Of the ones that I don't have, the one that you should really check out is an album called To the Hilt, which I think was 1 or 2 after Moontan. Amazing prog album. I was listening to that last night, and I need to listen to that again because there's long tracks on there. I think one is 19 minutes long. There's one for 10 minutes. Very proggy. Lots of great guitar work. So that's one to check out. It's called To the Hilt. And then I think the one before that, also called Switch, which had the marionette on the cover with the strings. That's another album of theirs to check out. DVD-wise, I have Golden Earring at Rockpalast, that great German music show. And they appeared there. And this, I think, was back in the 80s, early 80s. 82. And they play some great tracks on here. Candy's Going Bad, Leather, Save Your Skin, Vanilla Queen, Twilight Zone, Radar Love, Back Home, Just Like Vince Taylor. Pretty good. Barry Hay in particular is on fire in this concert with his flute and getting himself entangled with the microphone wire and all sorts of things. Great concert. And that's pretty much it for what I have as far as Golden Earring goes. So if you one of those people who think that, gee, didn't these guys ever do anything else besides Radar Love? I hope I've given you some ideas. If you are a Golden Earring fan, maybe this has given you an idea to go and revisit your albums, your CDs, vinyl, or your DVDs, or whatever. And yeah, a band that's still going today. I was watching that concert, as I said, they're full of energy, haven't lost anything. Barry Hay's vocals are still as great as anything. And that's usually what goes with a lot of these older guys is, like Ian Gillan just can't cut the old screaming anymore. But these guys seem to pull it off still. George Kooijman's the guitarist, he does the higher register stuff, still does it well. Obviously at the moment they're not touring. I'm hoping that they're going to release another album. But I'm pretty sure that when touring resumes, these guys will be back on the road because that's what they do. It's their life. If you've been doing it from 1961, I don't think there's going to be any change in career at this stage. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Please, if you have any comments, any any criticism, it's great. Put them in down below. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. Any suggestions as well? I'm always open to anything, anything music related. And hopefully this gets you cranking some Golden Earring for the next couple of days. My next video will probably be on another big band who had a loss quite recently. Unfortunately, they're no longer together. They broke up pretty recently. I'll be talking about the great British band UFO. So please join me for that one. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves and have a good week. Cheers.